This video is a presentation on how sex drives evolution, based off of Chapter 6 in the book Why Evolution is True by Jerry A. Coyne. This presentation will be given by
Megan Godoy,
Rukayatu Arex,
Myronish Michelle Varikia.
Sexual dimorphism. Traits that differ between males and females of a species are called sexual dimorphism. Biologists have found that sexually dimorphic traits in males seem to violate evolutionary theory, for they waste time and energy and reduce survival. So why do they have these traits? The currency of selection is not really survival, but successful reproduction. Sexual dimorphism examples. Here are some examples in animals of sexual dimorphism. First, we start with the male peacock. The male peacock has long tails that produce aerodynamic problems with flying. Their sparkling colors attract predators, and a lot of metabolic energy is diverted because each year they have to be regrown. Next, we have the Irish elk. The Irish elk is extinct. It had enormous antlers, about 12 feet and 90 pounds in weight. These antlers sat atop their 5-pound skull. Just like the peacock, the antlers were regrown each year. Another example is the male tungera frogs. These frogs are found in Central America. They have inflatable vocal sacs to attract female frogs. The sounds that they make also attract bats and blood-sucking flies. All these traits that these animals have, the peacock, the elk, the frog, all the traits that they possess, all threaten their lives. So why do they have it? They have these traits to attract the female in order to reproduce and have offsprings.
Sexual selection is simply increasing an individual or species' chance of getting a mate. Sexual selection promotes the evolution of reproduction and transfer of gene to next generation through various methods of mating among different species. Elephant seal are an example of extreme case of sexual selection. Male can weigh twice as much as female, which is an advantage to fighting other male for the privileges of mating with the female. Sexual selection does not end with the act of sex alone. Several means is put in place by the male to prevent others from stealing their paternity of a fertilized egg. This method is called the post-mating competition, which will be discussed in the next slide. Direct competition between male for access to female is between males for access to female. Selection will favor any trait that promotes such victories so long as the increased chances of getting mate more than offsets any reduced survival. Females choosy among possible mates. Sexual selection direct benefit. It involves difficult courtship, fighting, and males heavily compete for female. Eventually, the female is still in control of reproduction. However, what attracts female to male is different from species to species. Female will benefit directly by choosing a particular male who will help her produce viable and more healthier offspring, or benefit indirectly by choosing a male who has better genes than those of others. Either way, the evolution of female preference will be favored by selection. In this picture, you see males fighting and the female ignore them. After they finish fighting, she's going to choose who her partner will be. There's also an element of competition between male in this scenario, but it is an indirect competition. Winning male have the loudest voice, the brightest color, the most phenomenal, the sexiest display. The winner is still decided by the female. The criteria has to do with gene, more than physical attraction, better gene, better height, colors of eyes are the criteria for the indirect benefit.
Floaters. Males that do not mate with females or go unmated are called floaters. Floaters try to invade established territories to sneak copulations with females. This keeps the males that did mate very busy by protecting the females. An example of this is the red-winged blackbird of North America. Post-mating competition. There are multiple examples of post-mating competition. One is when males hang around after mating. They guard females against other suitors. An example of this is dragonflies. Dragonflies will attach to the female to guard them. Another post-mating competition are chemicals. Ejaculation from a substance that temporarily plugs up a female's reproductive tract. This happens in some snakes and rodents. Another one in fruit flies is when females are injected with anti-aphrodisiac, which make her unwilling to remate for several days. We also have offensive weapons. This gets rid of the sperm from previous mating sessions. An example of this is in the damselflies, called the penis scoop.
Gamete. Gamete is a matured haploid male or female germ cell that is able to unite with another of the opposite sex in sexual reproduction to form a zygote. The two sex may have different number and sizes of gamete. The male have lot of small sperm. Female makes fewer but large gamete, which is egg. This picture shows the amount of sperm surrounding one egg. Investment, expensive eggs, cheap sperm.
Sexual dimorphisms in monogamous species. Sexual dimorphism is a systematic difference in form between individuals of different sex of the same species. When the two sexes of the same species differ in attributes other than sexual organs, like ornaments, coloring, and behavior, sexual competition is usually followed, even in species believed to be monogamous. An example of sexual dimorphism in monogamous species is the fairy wren of Australia. Visually, we see the difference amongst the two. The blue one with the black stripes is the male. Below, we see the female, which is a dull grayish brown. This species is socially monogamous, meaning that both of the male and the female tend to their young as a pair. However, females are known to mate with other males more often than that of their social mate, and the males do the same. Evolution can possibly favor monogamy in cases where a male fathers more offspring by staying and aiding in childcare as opposed to abandoning. However, monogamy is not very common in the wild. Only 2% of all mammal species are monogamous. Monogamy. Sexual selection theory suggests that sexual competition exists when members of one sex have bright plumage, zealous mating displays antlers, or strive to build impressive structures. This means that it brings forth sexual competition. True monogamy occurs when little to no sexual dimorphism is present amongst the sexes. Uniformity in appearance and behavior sets no need for sexual competition, thus resulting in true monogamy. On the left-hand side, we can see geese and penguins. They are examples of true monogamy. Males versus females. Choosy females are competed by promiscuous and boisterous males. Females benefit directly by picking a male who will help her in producing more and healthier young. Females benefit indirectly by choosing a male who has better genes than those of the other males. Female preference will be favored by natural selection. This can be tied to what was previously mentioned. Sperm is considered cheap and abundant, while eggs created by females are limited. The sex that invests more heavily in an offspring will be more choosy about who they mate with. The sex that invests least in an offspring should compete more vigorously for access to the higher investing sex. Sensory bias. The sensory bias hypothesis states that the preference for a trait evolves in a non-mating context and is then exploited by one sex in order to obtain more mating opportunities. The competitive sex evolves traits that exploit a pre-existing bias that the choosy sex already possesses. Those biases could be a byproduct of natural selection for some function other than finding mates, like food and shelter. An example of sensory bias is in Trinidad guppies. The female guppies are attracted to the orange color. Sexual selection then favors males with lots of orange working on a preference that is already in place.